Good mornings, Titans Nation. Welcome back into the Morning Glory Show for another amazing show. We got a jam-packed one. We're talking offense. We're talking defense. We're talking OTAs. We got a great draft at the end of the show. We're picking the best careers that you could have. But I am your host, as always, Jake Robertson. Follow me at Glory Day Sports. I'm joined today by my co-host, as always, B-Will at BWillTFTV and Jonathan Miller at Esports Valen. How we doing today, boys?
Yeah, great, man. Weather's nice outside. We got OTAs. We get a lot of content with OTAs. Brand Carthen and Brian Callahan are showing up on more podcasts than I've ever seen Vrabel show up, man. It's great. It's great to be a Titans fan right now.
Absolutely. It'd be even greater to be a Titans fan with slightly more sleep. I look very tired this morning, but other than that, doing well.
The vibes are immaculate in Nashville, as Chigakonkwo put yesterday at OTAs. And just hearing Chig speak, I mean, it sounds like the players are buying into what Callahan and Rand are putting forward with everything that's going on. And we're seeing that from the media as well. Like you said, Rand was on Busting with the Boys earlier this week, and Callahan's done all the rounds. What's the lizard man's name? Nick Holtz has been yet to be seen on anything. Denard Wilson was even on The Ringer, if I remember correctly. So they're getting out there, and this is such a upside down world, almost Stranger Things compared to what Mike Vrabel did. We saw him on Bussin' one time, and Callahan is the most honest coach I've ever seen in the NFL. He is just putting it all out there for the world to see, and maybe it's just refreshing for us. It might be to the point in time where it's like, hey, you can hold back a little bit. You can hold back. You don't have to tell them everything.
They were starting paranoid then.
Yeah. And then, I mean, they just put out that great article on Sports Illustrated yesterday as well, Albert Breer, if I remember correctly, where they really delved down deep into that. What are our thoughts on just Will Levis at this point in the offseason?
Let Jonathan lead the way, man.
Man, that's an honor. I'm impressed. I think to kind of reference the Sports Center article, I was not necessarily surprised, but it was really cool to get a peek behind the curtain of evaluating a player with a player. And I think Brian Callahan saw what we all saw. And I think the one thing I did like a lot is that as an amateur evaluator of talent, especially at the quarterback position, it's really easy to maybe overlook some of the nuance that makes a player like, oh, this guy's got something, or who knows what this guy could be, right? And I think for most fans, you see it and it's like, okay, that was a big game. And not everybody really wanted to give Will Levis his props, and he didn't really maybe get his proper flowers because he followed it up with a very subpar game right in Pittsburgh. So, and then overall his rookie debut there's a lot left to be desired. But if you just evaluate the player purely as a quarterback, a lot of the throws that he made, his pocket presence was very natural, like right off the rip. He has a lightning quick release, big arm, can put the ball in any area, and has surprising accuracy under insane pressure. So there's like all these big check marks that you get with him as a player. And Brian Callahan saw that right away. And it was cool to kind of have them talk through that. But overall, my impression of Will Levis going into this offseason is that, and probably the most interesting dynamic to me, is how he talked about, drafted. He was clearly not the guy. Like, it was Ryan Tannehill's job. There was even this thing with Malik Willis where they drafted him kind of high, like a year or two back. So it was like, do I have to compete for this? Like, I have to kind of earn my way. And he has a good point. Like, Will Levis has said it multiple times in public. Like, when you don't know that you're the guy, you have to approach the job with a very different demeanor. And so, obviously he gets the nod going into this season, and a lot of things change for him. He gets to step up and be the vocal leader. He gets to be the leader that he is, which is what I think this team needed. And then another interesting nugget really quick before I turn it to you, B. Will, is Brian Callahan was basically talking about Will Levis and saying like it was probably my favorite part of the entire article, honestly. And if you haven't read it from Sports Illustrated, I don't know who wrote the article off the top of my head, but it's been shared around Titans Twitter quite a bit. Go read it because it's an incredible read. Brian Callahan essentially says there is a level to developing a quarterback in this league where you have to give them the reps. And it's not just about, oh, he's a gunslinger and he makes this crazy decision, but it's important to get that on the tape so that way you can learn from it. And a lot of guys learn best that way. And a lot of teachers of coaches coach better that way. But if you just hide this guy behind somebody forever, like, it's really hard to evaluate that guy. And I know that's a very mundane way to explain it. Callahan has a better way with words when he says it. It's just an example. And I'm sure we'll get into the whole like players referring to the old coaching staff OTA, but it was interesting to say, like, it kind of validated my opinion of the Titans and what they did with the Mike Vrabel firing was that, like, who knows how Will would have actually developed had he stayed under that coaching staff. And Titans fans should be optimistic about having Brian Callahan, somebody who truly understands the developmental path and potential when it comes to teaching the game to these quarterbacks. So I think we should be even more optimistic maybe than we were before, because all of it just kind of, seeing all those details behind the scenes really shine through.
For me, the change from the hierarchy, from coaching staffs, from the Mike Vrabel-led offense, the Mike Vrabel-led team to this Brian Callahan-led team, Brian Callahan-led offense has flipped it completely on the head for me with my optimism with my outlook on Will Levis. I mean, I would go as far to say that if Vrabel was still leading this team and we still have Tim Kelly as the head coach, I would maybe be 30-70 that, Will can perform in the environment that's around him, because environments make quarterbacks in this league. They just do. Yep. So, I mean, it's all about who's around them skill position-wise, who's around them in the offensive line, who's around them in that huddle, and then it's also about who's in their ear in that huddle. And we've got to the point this year where we have a bit of trust and we can have some optimism, one, about the guys in that huddle, and then the guy that's putting something in his ear in that huddle as well. So when you have that level of optimism going into the season, it's a level of optimism around the quarterback position that I have not had in 20 years with this Titans team, to be honest. I mean, we wanted Mariota to be the guy, but how many really thought he could be the guy? Especially considering and I know it's revisionist and I know it's hindsight, but how many really, really thought he was going to be the guy after the dust settled after year one and saw what we saw, and then saw who we had calling plays and stuff like that and who was around him? We had Wisenhunt, and then people can say all they want. He was a quote unquote offensive guru, whatever you call it, but it didn't work out. So, and we still have that year with Callahan, but I can honestly say I see the process that this team is taking when it comes to building the team, and I see the process that Will Levis is going through with Coach Callahan, and that's all we can ask for at the end of the day. So my impression for Levis is I love his attitude, and that's another thing that leads me to have more optimism, is that we haven't had this attitude in 20 years as a quarterback, leading from the front and a vocal way. We had Tannehill that led in his own way. Mariota led in his own way. But I want my quarterback to be a fucking badass leading from the front. First guy out the tunnel, talking shit to the other team, talking shit to the other coaches. That's who I want leading my team out the huddle, and we've got that in Will Levis. He has things he can work on, as we've talked about. I mean, it doesn't have to be reiterated, but, and I have my restraints with Will Levis around his temperament, and they've said as much in the article. This is well-documented stuff. I'm not just pulling that out my ass. That
Will Levis even agreed. He even said that his temperament is bad. He was like, yeah.
He might have said temperament word for word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's I'm not just coming out. I'm just not just coming up with stuff out my butt, but that's something that is going to have to be tapered and tampered in this offense, and this offense is built not to taper and tamper specifically, but you have the options that are there that you can taper and tamper it with. So, and Callahan said as much as, we got Birch running down on a 50-yard fly, and we got Chig in the flat that can go for 10. But Levis he's looking for the home run every time. He's like a slugger. So we need to get him dialed back to Tony Gwynnish, and I think we'll be okay. So, we have the pieces in place offensively, I'd say, and at the end of the day, we just got to be able to evaluate them. And Carthon has done an excellent job of giving us a clean slate and giving Will Levis a clean slate, giving Callahan a clean slate to evaluate Will Levis with. Will Levis can't say it's on anybody but himself now. It's all on him. I say boom or bust, but that's because that's the timeline that the franchise has to be on after this year. We have to, this is the year for Levis, So that's the expectation for him because we've worked hard to put the people around him, whether that's coaching, players, to be able to evaluate him, and he has the pieces that he needs to succeed. It's on him now, and I think he can. But, once again, it's football's played on the field, and it's not played on air, and it's not played in articles in Sports Illustrated. We've got to see it on the field, and I'm confident that we can.
Yeah, I even with that throw, it starts out the article that way, and Will Levis just pretty much was like, that's a stupid fucking throw. And Brian Callahan comes out, and he's like, you're right, it was. But you have the ability to do that, and you can always – it's easier to rein a quarterback in than it is to get him to attempt those throws. Yep. Not many people on this planet can do what he did on that. And it's just and Callahan talked about it in the presser yesterday after practice. He's just working on right now installing this offense. And we'll get into that situational stuff later down the line. You don't have to throw it deep on 3rd and 1. You can take that underneath route, and you can move through those progressions faster if you need to do that, just so you can get the ball out of your hands and into those playmakers and let them do it. You don't have to play hero ball every single snap. And that's going to be the biggest thing is he had to do that at Kentucky. Especially that last season. He had nobody around him because everybody moved off through the draft. Liam Cohen left him, and they have a new system coming in, and the offensive line is terrible. It's exactly what he had in Nashville last year. Now we're putting these pieces together. Allow him to do what he does well, but also you have to be smart about it. And it's just doing little things like that. And we're putting these playmakers around him, and that leads – looking at Calvin Ridley at OTAs, we've got that guy. I think he can be that 1-2 punch with DeAndre Hopkins, of course, who missed practice yesterday. Not worried about that at all. I think Jared Stillman talked about how it could be a contract holdout. He's not happy with that. I didn't actually listen to it, but that was the initial post. I think that's just – I'm not even going to entertain that. He'll be out there. DeAndre's never really done that in his entire career, as being the whole –
real quick, Jake.
Yeah.
If we're still on Levis, what part of with quarterbacks naturally, I mean, which part of the coin do you think they're evaluated more heavy on? Their lows or their highs? Because I think it ties into Levis and really quarterback play as a whole. Because the article talked about the highs, but a lot of it was the lows as well.
I mean, if the highs are high enough, it'll outweigh the lows. And I mean, that goes down to Brett Favre in his entire career. The dude was a gunslinger throughout, and he led the league in interceptions many times, but he also brought in Super Bowls over there in Green Bay. So I think if he can continue to show those and just not have as many bad mistakes, and I don't think it's talked about it enough, this wide receiver core, when he was playing quarterback, almost led the NFL in drops. And they
mentioned 4 in the article, and they all were by a certain person.
And there was quite a few in yesterday's OTAs from what I read as well. That's not a concern for me. I think they're building that, and DeAndre obviously wasn't out there as well, and we've got rookies and all that other stuff. But the turnover-worthy plays, he does have to clean those up. I don't think he's ever going to be this 4 interception in a season type of guy. He's going to throw the ball into some situations that he probably shouldn't to try and make those. So I think if he can keep it around that 10 interception range, I'm perfectly happy with that. But health has got to be the biggest concern for me. If the man can stay on the field and not have to deal with turf toe and a hurt shoulder and a dislocated finger like he did his senior year at Kentucky, that's going to be the biggest thing. We saw it pop up last season in the offseason, and then also at the end of the season. So he's got to play smarter in those situations. He can't take those huge hits. And if the offensive line is improved, which we have to assume has improved with Brian Callahan and everybody they put around him, and then Lloyd Cushenberry talking about being just the tone setter, and they're out there 20 minutes before practice, 20 minutes after practice, they're going to be in great shape, and they're really putting this all together. I think this team could be very good around Will Levis, and that'll allow us to evaluate what he is as a player.
You sound like a man that's ready to double your win total prediction.
Ah, man. Thought about it.
Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it.
Look, there was something that Callahan said in the article that was plain and simple in terms of like evaluation, right? Like he mentioned, this kid's got a crazy arm. He's got all the physical traits. The stuff that he needs to rein in is like his decision making, right? They're going through progressions. And he talked about it with that first throw to Treylon Burks, which was an incredible throw, guy in his face, absolutely insane throw. But he had a check down. I think it was to Chig or somebody, or maybe it was Tajay in the flat, it was Chig. He was like, yeah. Callahan even said, he's like, Chig catches that ball and turns up the field for 12 yards, and you have another 1st and 10 at the 50 now. So he's like, it's not that he's not smart enough to know these things. It's that, as far as like processing, you might read something early in the defense, see, a safety drop or something and go, boom, I got this guy. And then he stares down that. He doesn't even go through his progressions. He just stares it down because he's like, that's where I'm going with the ball. So it's just a matter of, widening that perspective and understanding like, hey, and especially when defenses show you exotic looks, like there's going to be a situation where you can't rely on a pre-snap read. You can't even rely on a post-snap read sometimes. And so that's like clearly the biggest area where he needs to improve. But what was interesting in the valuation stuff is that Callahan literally said, first of all, decision-making can be coached. This right here, you don't coach that. Will's mom and dad gave him that, talking about that crazy throw. So that's kind of where I kind of operate also, like in my evaluation of Will Levis. When you look at the physical traits and his ability to throw the ball around, literally put the ball anywhere, I thought he was really accurate in very inaccurate moments, right? And so he has all the physical ability. It's just a matter of coaching him up. And Callahan referenced it in the article several times where he's like, look, I can coach him up. And he saw like there was like a big throw. I think it was the big throw, the second or third touchdown. I think it was the third touchdown to DeAndre against the Falcons. He said he saw that throw and was like, oh yeah, I want to coach this guy. Like he's got the traits. And so, to B. Will's point, like I can't really remember a Titans quarterback that had this type of throwing ability since, McNair. Right. Or maybe Locker with like the big arm, but like his accuracy was not good. So I think we have something here, and I think that they're continuing to kind of peel behind the curtains a little bit and show us, which has been really cool so far this offseason.
Two things for Levis two things for Levis. One, what more impressed me than all the arm strength and all the attitude, I mean, all that's great. But what impressed me the most, and I put a tier over all that, is his processing and communication pre-snap without, a veteran center. This guy took control of the offense pre-snap from day one. He's changing blocking assignments. He's making checks at the line of scrimmage. You don't always see that in a rookie quarterback, especially if you have a veteran center in place that's making all those calls for you, for the quarterback at the line of scrimmage. I mean, Levis is doing everything from identifying the mic to shifting blocking schemes, calling slides to the left when he sees pressure, and making hot reads to wide receivers on the other side of the field. If you watch the game intently and just stare at him, look at all that he did last year pre-snap. That's amazing for a rookie quarterback to do. Levis has the brain power and processing power to be a very, very, very good quarterback. It's just we don't need him to galaxy brain it sometimes when it comes to post-snap of, oh, I could fit this there, or maybe I could just throw this like this and I could fit it there. That's part of the temperamental thing that I think, that I've talked about, I know, and that Callahan talked about in the article. He's got it. It's just how much. And then also with quarterback play, I mean, Callahan spoke about it when he first got hired. Quarterbacks have to take a profit. You can't just go for the lottery. The damn jackpot, the mega millions, you know what I mean, the $80 billion Tennessee lottery every single time. Be fine with that scratch off that wins you $5. You know what I mean? And you got your money back plus $250. You can buy you a thing of chips. Be happy with that profit, because if you make a profit, you can buy another car. Levis wants to hit that jackpot every time too much. Take a profit as a quarterback, live to see another down, gives you another opportunity to make another play. And that's really what it goes into temperamentally too with Levis. He has to have that mindset.
Yeah, and I think bringing in Lloyd, you talk about veteran center, Lloyd Cushenberry. I'm talking about him. He's talking about it yesterday. What is his biggest attribute that he brings to the team? He said, my IQ. I'm one of the smartest centers in the league. He's going to be able to help Levis with those checks and balances at the line of scrimmage and take more off of him. And I think the system's going to do that as well. This is the first time since, I believe, Penn State that Will Levis isn't going to be operating under a Einhardt-Perkins styled system. We're going to move into this Callahan-based, and I think it's going to make it a lot easier at the line of scrimmage. But with Will Levis last season, that was one of the things. We were timing those snaps. We're going off on one on the play clock every single play. I think it's going to be sped up a lot more, and I think we're going to move fast this season. I think we're going to get to the line of scrimmage, make these calls, and that's going to be just doing that consistently. This line is going to wear on people. We've got some big men out there, so I'm pretty excited with that. And shout out to MB in the chat. He says the new offensive system should improve his decision making. Plus, he may be taking more chances in OTAs than he would in a game, and that's what you want. No more of this. Marcus Mariota has not thrown an interception in minicamp this season, kind of stuff. That's not going to be the case, especially with the secondary that we're putting out there. But and he says more like Warren Moon. Yeah, he's got to make these mistakes in practice so he doesn't do it in the game. And I think that's what we're going to see. And that's where we're also going to see where he can dial things back as well. Yeah.
Does it seem like this coaching staff are potentially better teachers of the game opposed to the previous coaching staff? Like, we can kind of segue into that a little bit. Arden Key had a really interesting comment during his interview yesterday, where he basically said, well, when we mess up, we don't move on. Like, if we mess something up, we stay on it until we correct it.
He said, we fix it and then we move on. I love that.
So that made me believe, that leads us to believe that they were making some mistakes in camp in the previous regime, or maybe just in general. Maybe it was in games also, whatever. And they, or probably just practice in general. And they weren't moving on, or they were just moving on if they messed something up. So everything, like Chig's comments were a little, oh, the vibe's really good. You can be yourself out here. Like, you don't have to have a stick in your ass walking around because Variable's such a hard ass type of thing. So all of those things kind of validated what us as fans saw on the outside. We're like, this seems kind of like folks are having to walk on eggshells. And clearly we're seeing the same mistakes over and over. I mean, it was easy for us to be like, oh, the O-line is not fixing issues that they're having. So it was clear that we were seeing that on the offensive line. I think things like edge and linebacker and certain other positions are a little like the flaws are like easier to hide at times, right? If Arden Key gets 4 or 5 pressures and a half sack in a game, you're like, that was a pretty good game. Versus, the offensive line just getting their tail whipped over and over again. That equates to, the offense not being able to move the ball. It's easier to be like, yeah, okay, they're getting destroyed. So I thought that comment was really interesting from Arden, and then kind of reading between the tea leaves with the comments from Chig and previous players who have been there. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think they're definitely putting more of an emphasis on the teaching part of it.
Yep.
I think that they taught the previous regime taught plenty. It just might have been more scheme based. The intricacies of the scheme, not necessarily technique, or, the responsibility was on the players beforehand to understand what's going on. And if you didn't get it right in practice, you're probably coming off the field. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then we move on. I mean, I don't like those comments from Key, and to a certain extent Chig, because one, where's your loyalty? But two, these guys, the responsibility, Vrabel and them thought the responsibility was on the players to understand the scheme, and then we get to practice, that's game time, we're going through the motions of the scheme. These players only have a certain amount of time, a finite amount of time on the field in the offseason. It's really constricted with how much time they have. So Vrabel and them are thinking, how much time, y'all are wasting our time at this point because y'all don't understand the scheme. So I can understand why they thought that with how much time that they had in place to practice. So it's just a different way of leading, and one way isn't any more right than the other, because if you don't get to all the stuff on your practice sheet by the end of the practice sheet because you sat there and coached, or you sat there and taught up a lot more, that's to me, that's a failure of a practice versus if you got through everything. It's the same failure. You either get through everything that you need to practice and you've taught everything you need to teach, or you're on the other end of the spectrum where you're not getting through everything because you had to teach on, C instead of getting to Z. So both are failures in my opinion. It's just how you button it up and put it in a damn box.
Yeah, I think the problem though for me is that there's a huge difference between being a coach and a teacher, right?
Mhm.
Like coaches are just authority figures at times. It's like, hey, you're doing this wrong. Like I'll never forget when I was 10 years old, I did my first swimming class, and my swim instructor, I was just jumping off and belly flopping on every dive, just boom, 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 belly flop, belly flop. After the 10th or 12th belly flop, your belly is beat red. Like I was going through it. It was a rough time. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this again. I don't want to come back here and do this again. My teacher is like not even paying attention to some 16-year-old girl. She had her boyfriend there. It was awkward. It was not good. And so we have people who get put in authoritative positions all the time who are instructed to lead a group of people or maybe individuals. And if you don't do a good job of leading, like the problem, I think, is that Vrabel and potentially his folks that he had under him, I can't speak for all of them, but speaking for Vrabel, we knew what kind of teacher he was. He was a leader of men, which means like, this is how we're going to do it. This is how you should do it. Let's move on. That's not necessarily a good teacher. A good teacher understands that the student that they're teaching learns different than student B. And student B might need something different than student C. Student B is probably the smartest of all the students, but they just need someone to care. They need a friend. Here, come here, buddy. I got you. They need care. Student C needs a hard, stern, hey, this is how you do it. Get it fixed, man. You got it. So each person, like understanding that you might, like Arden Key is probably a softie. Maybe he needs like a careful approach to where, oh, okay, now I get it. And it seemed like they didn't spend a whole lot of time on understanding, like giving the care of each individual. And obviously, you won't have that in every situation. But the point I'm trying to make is that a good teacher like a great example is Brian Callahan coming in talking about Levis. He said, we're not going to ask him to do anything that he's not comfortable with. He's going to lead the way. We're going to use the best traits of Will Levis, push those forward, and try to correct the things that he's not doing as well. Right. So it's not saying like, don't go out there and beat your chest and be like, act like you've been here, blah, blah, blah. It's just like you're coaching the wrong points. Like you're putting emphasis on points that don't matter as much. And so you're losing, any type of like rapport that you might have built with somebody. And that relationship building part is like 70% of the job when you're coaching. Like these people need to respect and love you and love to be around you and want to be engaged, right? Like Will Levis said, for the first time in his career, he feels like he can go to Brian Callahan and give him a recommendation on something. And if he says no, it's like, okay, it's all good. I tried. Whereas like, what are you going to approach Vrabel that way? Hey, let's do this thing, man. He's got this such strong bravado that it's like, what are you going to challenge Vrabel on anything? Probably not. You're going to keep your mouth shut and listen to daddy, because that's the vibe that he gives, right? So I think that's the difference. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, like you said, B. Will. It's just like a different style of coaching. And for a team that was crippled to nothing, like Vrabel came in almost as like a drill sergeant, if you will, and buttoned those boys up and got and elevated the culture of the team, which we needed at the time. But to take a different approach to the modern game, I think having this style of coaching staff is important for the overall trajectory of the franchise, because it completely changes the way that we look at the game and kind of puts the power in the players' hands and kind of changes. Like we all had that teacher growing up where it was like a sub would come in and the vibe was just insanely different. Like sometimes good, sometimes bad, but you're like, oh man, this is kind of nice. And it changes the way you're like, hold on, I'm kind of engaged. Like you find yourself like more engaged and learning better. The leader of who is in front of a group of individuals matters so much. And if they're really in tuned with who they are teaching and coaching, then that makes the world of a difference. And to me, that's what separates the great coaches from just the okay coaches.
What the fans should not do and can't do is act like Vrabel wasn't a teacher. Every clip we seen of him in practice, he had a bag in his hand. He's hands-on. He's teaching. They just taught different things. That coaching staff would focus on technique and scheme. This coaching staff is more emotionally in tune, and they're catering to a guy like Arden Key. Hey, Come on now. These guys are professionals at the end of the day. I don't, to me, I don't give a damn about all that. You're a professional. Come in, do what you're supposed to do, and be a professional football player. You're getting paid millions of dollars for this. And there's also another ideology in the background with players and coaches, the dynamic that a lot of these players should be learning more on their own. And when you get to practice, it's to install scheme because of how much time they have. The NFL is just weird because you have some teams that are really scheme driven with that, and the technique should be learned on their own. I mean, how many players do you know that has individual specific position coaches that help them with technique? All quarterbacks do. You know what I mean? And then a lot of edge guys have the O linemen. You see them going to Duke Manyweather. That's where they get their technique. The master class. That's where they get their technique on their own time. So Vrabel did more than others teaching technique. Maybe that's not what some of the players want because they have their own coaches that they have their techniques and their professionals. I got here with this technique. I'm just speculating. But they can't act like in these press conferences that Vrabel wasn't teaching, And it's just them saying that. It's only certain guys. And if you look at the guys that are saying it, it's the ones that wasn't producing that damn well. Carden Key wasn't producing that damn much. There's a reason we had an edge at need, or a needed edge. Chig Okonkwo wasn't producing that damn much. There's a reason we have a need as a bona fide tight end. Let me hear Derrick Henry say something. Well, they weren't teaching as much in my career. That's why I wasn't able to become the running back I came. They taught a shit ton. It's just how receptive you are to it. That's my thing. They're going to the point of the catering and the emotional intelligence stuff like that. You're a professional football player. Do your job. That's what I believe.
I think it is different coaching styles and teaching styles. And I think I couldn't find the quote. After they hired Denard Wilson and they start putting together this staff and that initial presser, they said, we are not looking for coaches. We are looking for teachers. That's right. First and foremost. And then they'll build up the emotional side of that stuff as well. But when we go into it and being a personal trainer, CrossFit coach, et cetera, there's a lot of different coaches you'll see out there. And going into things like the Olympic lifts, I can teach you how to do a snatch. And there might be a coach out there that's going to say on that third pull, you're just going to backflip. You're going to hit that bar with your hips. You're going to throw it overhead. And then I might do something separate to where we're focusing on that first pull. We're keeping that chest high. And then we're actively hitting that barbell up instead of out. And then we're falling underneath it. It's just different wordings, I think, more than anything. But going back to Key, we're talking about this defense. He's saying that this defense is going to play fast, physical, pissed off. Love that. But he's saying and talking about attacking upfield. We saw a lot under this Mike Vrabel era, this almost mush rush, where they're trying to contain the quarterback so they can play this bend, don't break defense, allow the quarterback to beat them in the secondary, not up front. And looking at our linebackers back then, we were lacking athleticism, so they couldn't make those plays. We're looking at this defensive style system, and then Roger McCreary said, hey, we're practicing a lot of blitzing out here on the edge and out of the secondary. That tells me this team is going to be pinning their ears back and allowing this defense to do what they do well. So it's going to be scheme specific, but it's going to look very different from what Titans fans are used to. And Chidobe, he put it very well. Playing chess, not checkers, no pun intended. He said the way he breaks it down is it becomes simple when he's talking about Denard Wilson. It's very complex, but the way he puts it simplifies things. And that's what you're ultimately looking for. We want it to click with these players opposed to just talking to a wall. And I think that's what this team is really focusing on, especially on defense. Offense might be slightly different, but Denard, I believe, is an amazing coach and leadership, and he's getting those simplicity across when he's teaching the scheme.
That's what we need to be harping on from the interviews more, I'd say. Because the fans are obviously going to run with, we can, we're more free and stuff like that. But the scheme, the schematic difference defensively is what's really going to be big. Because Vrabel himself was, his first press conference, he said, we're going to be multiple up front, complex in the back. You know what I mean? So they're showing different things up front, whether that's a 3-4 look or a 4-3 look. but they're not really doing that much different. I mean, we saw some stunts every now and then, but a lot of times it was depending on the quarterback who you have, and we're going to formulate the game plan around that and sort of out-tactic you. Now with Denard, I'm not going to say he's not going to out-tactic you because it'll just be in a different way. He's going to try and force your hand to how to do it. You know, on the other hand, when we had Vrabel, it was let's try and confuse them as much as they can. This, we're going to try and get in their face and get in their ass. That's the way with Denard Wilson, and I think that's more receptive to players now to do that because you're not always going to be able to out-tactic a guy like you. How many times are you going to be able to out-tactic a coach like Andy Reid or a coach like Kyle Shanahan or McVay? It's not going to happen as much, and it's relying on all 11 players as chess players to be exactly where they need to be. If you're playing fast, you're playing fast, and you'll be by the ball. You just got to be by the ball. That's what I like most about the difference between the defense we have now versus the defense that we've ran in the last couple of years is that this is more predicated on playing fast instead of being more predicated on being in the right spot, getting fast to your spot. This is getting fast to the ball. Vrabel's teaching, let's get fast to a spot and let's do our job. Now we're saying get to the ball, and that's what I like more about this. That should be what the talking points should be, in my opinion, with across the fan base. But it's easy to run with the other stuff. I understand.
Definitely. And then I guess we can hop in a little bit into the offense before we move on. These Treylon Burks hype is just getting out of control. We've done it for 3 seasons now. What are we doing here? Calvin Ridley comes out. He said, there's 4 different quotes. This dude's a freak. Like, seriously, bro. He's going to be a stud. There's no worries. Dude, that big, that fast, man, he's a stud. You don't have to worry about him. And then this is the one that just set me off. What I see, he's like Julio, A.J. Brown. He's like T.O. What are we doing, people? I get that you want to build up the confidence in this guy, but we're talking about a wide receiver 4 right now. He's not T.O. He's not Terrell Owens. I'm sorry to break it to Titans fans. I get it. You want the first-round pick to be this dude, and maybe he can become a wide receiver 2 in the future. Maybe. We'll see if he can stay healthy, which he is healthy. I think he's the healthiest he's ever been. I think he's in the most best shape he's ever been since being in the NFL. And he talked about it even that this scheme that they're running is very similar to what he did at Arkansas, which that doesn't make any fucking sense to me because he didn't play wide receiver. He played athlete. He played athlete up there. So if
he doesn't know left from right.
I digress.
Hold on. I just need to Google. Is Oklahoma got beef with Arkansas? Oklahoma.
A bunch of inbreds up there.
Hey man.
Oh, okay.
I thought.
Question. I'll just go ahead and stop Googling.
I saw that Ridley quote, and I thought that was a troll account. One of those accounts with Treylon Burks and the AVI.
Yep.
I'm not lying to you. I thought it was a joke, and I understand why. I mean, you got to hype your own players up. But I'm not going to talk about that this morning. I'm going to let y'all talk about it because I've already been a negative Nancy this morning, and I don't want to be any more one.
Perfect. I'll pump some optimism into this chat. All right, here we go. Look, boys. Look.
Here comes Ron Slay.
Look. All right. Look, I'm in the same boat with you guys on Treylon, right? Like, we've all had the conversation. Like, we've all been talking about it this entire time. Treylon has to show us more. We don't know who he is. My opinion is that we don't know quite who he is yet. I think that he's been put in really strange situations. I think that he was a player that needed to develop more, and he was thrusted into wide receiver 1 expectations. We know the drill. We've been talking about it all offseason, and frankly, we talked about it a lot last offseason too. The difference this year is that he has 3 bona fide, just incredible players in front of him, all in their own right. And so I think that the expectations drop. I think that it's like, all right, Trey, just go ball, man. Be a playmaker. When we call on you, plug in. You can move him around clearly. He looks great in OTAs. Obviously, like, he had that big go ball that he caught yesterday. That was impressive, where he didn't lose speed and was able to actually catch the ball in front of him. Like, Tannehill wasn't always throwing those things. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going full speed. So anyways, look, I'm not going to sit here and like pitchfork for Treylon Burks anymore. I did an entire video. I clearly think that there's a lot of potential there, but we have to see it. It's that simple. Like, we don't really have to shine the light on Traylon anymore. The quote from Calvin Ridley I thought was hilarious. I was as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, stocks are going up on Traylon Burks. Good thing I bought at the floor. You know what I'm saying? So, if some people
penny
are
stock.
really, exactly. I was like, if some people are seeing it now, cool. Like, I think his teammates should hype him up. I think Calvin's just kind of got a silly personality. So all, the comparisons to T.O. and stuff like that were hilarious. But I think the point he was trying to make is like, hey, this kid is a specimen. He's an athlete. So if he can put it together and stay, obviously his teammates can't go if he can stay healthy, like that's just an unnecessary jab in the side that you can't do. But that's what we can say as fans is like, if he can stay healthy, sure. Like, we see it, he can put it together. And there's not a chance in next year's offense that he's going to have like 60 balls and 1,000 or 800 to 900 yards. He's just not going to see that target share. However, we should see enough from him next season where he's healthy the entire time. He comes in and makes plays, and we're like, okay, there's Traylon. Cool. Let's keep peeling back this, let's peel this banana a little further. So I'm not gonna go crazy on it. I think the comparisons are a little funny. The only thing that bothered me, if I'm being honest, like I had some, he said the way he approached his interviews yesterday bothered me a little bit. He kind of had like this, like he's supposed to have a little bit of a bravado in a way because his teammates are like, bro, you're really him. And so he's like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of him. And then it's like he kind of brought that to the interview where I would have liked to have seen him say like, I'm just, I'm happy and healthy and I'm going to put my nose down and grind and work really hard to be an integral part of this offense. Like something like that where he was just like, I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I'm just having fun out here. Go Hogs type of, like, it was just like this weird vibe that he gave. And I was like, oh, that's some like a lot of confidence for someone who hasn't been able to do anything for us. So that was really my only problem. Everything else everybody said was fine. And I think he's, maybe not preferring the attention that he's getting. Like he had the biggest crowd of media yesterday out of all the interviews, and rightfully so. There's a lot of hype around him. His teammates, D-Hop saying what he said, Calvin said what he said right before that. So I get it. But yeah, we just got to see him put it together. And I don't necessarily think he's going to get crazy target share to be like, at the end of next season, I'm not going to be like, I told you guys so. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not going to be enough there to say that. But I do think that we'll see enough from him to go, oh, okay, that's what Traylon Burks is supposed to do in this offense. Got it. Okay, cool. We like him. If they picked up the 5th-year option, everybody wouldn't throw their things. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, we'll have him back. He was good. And so that's the ceiling to me for him.
Does he catch more fish next year or footballs?
Okay, you're trolling, bro.
It's 100%. 100%. But you heard it here first. Terrell Owens going for 400 yards this season on this offense that throws the ball every play. In the chat, Traylon Burks stuff is probably true, but from a physical standpoint, but the stuff we're freaking out about isn't stuff that necessarily carries on to game day.
Let's see a side by side of quotes about Dorial Green Beckham and Traylon Burks about the size and speed. I guarantee they align.
100%.
Yeah, DGB he was a freak.
He was a freak.
That was what, set him apart. So yeah, I mean, you'll always draw those comparisons. And I think you're, to your point, B. Will, we can't really like get crazy about his physical traits, right? At the end of the day, he hasn't shown us enough. Not necessarily. I mean, he's shown us, if we're being honest, we've seen the flashes of physicality and athleticism. Like we've seen it, like the catch that he got knocked out on in Philadelphia. He was fully stretched and caught a really impressive ball. He caught really impressive balls against the Bengals, one in the playoffs, one in regular. Like we've seen
the Jair Alexander, you're too small.
Yeah.
I want to see more of that. And I want him to bring that to the interviews. I want to see that switch flipped because that's in there. He comes out as this slow demeanor kind of talking guy, but he's got that dog in him and he's shown it. It's just consistently doing that and making that switch. He needs to bring that energy up. Will Levis kind of needs to bring it down. Maybe they can do that together. And play off each other.
So, and with the Traylon Burks hype, the same day we have the article with Will Levis come out and it's mentioned 3 times of drops he has. It's ridiculous.
Well, to be fair, the first ball in Atlanta, that was really good defense. That ball got swatted. And Traylon did it. Like, what's he supposed to do in that situation? Like, it's a corner ball, corner post. Like, what's he supposed? Like the defense made a really great play. I'm not saying Traylon hasn't had legitimate drops. Of course he has. But in all fairness, one of those three was a legitimate, just good defense.
I was just surprised they put in an article about the drops yet. That's all I'm saying.
Because it was a better ball. It was a great ball from Levis, so I get it. But yeah, I had that thought too. I was like, oh.
He said, Levis, slide step to the left, evades freaking Vita Vea, perfect ball to receiver, drop by Burks. I mean, that's what the article was.
That was the worst drop of the year.
Oh yeah,
the Houston one, in my opinion, was way worse.
Which was the I thought
the Houston one was worse. Yeah,
I saw that one live.
Maybe I got it backwards. Was that not the go ball like up the seam on the left side?
That was the Houston ball.
Okay, yeah, that was the worst drop of the year.
Atlanta, he was coming across the field. It was very well covered. There was 2-3 guys over there. I don't know if it was swatted or not, but he caught it on the didn't catch it on the sideline. He should have caught it on the sideline. But yeah, that go ball in Houston will forever haunt my dreams.
Does he catch really more balls or bass? That's what I want to know.
What's the over?
I'm about to. Yeah, give me an over under, and I'll answer that.
He comes across as a good fisherman, more the better than the receiver he is. I don't doubt his fisherman skills. I doubt him on the field receiver wise. So
if he wasn't married, I would want to see his Tinder profile. You know, he's got all the pictures of him holding up that fish.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and move on, guys. Got a little game for us. PFF has been putting out their positional rankings they haven't had put out all of them, but basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to give one of you the option to guess where our players fell on this rankings, and the other will say either over or under on that, and we can dive more into that. But since this entire episode's really been predicated about Will Levis, we'll go ahead and start there. And we'll start with you, B. Will. Where do you think Will Levis fell on this rankings, 1 through 32?
I know where he fell in the AFC South last week or so, and that was last. But for the league, if we cascade that to the league, I would say out of 32, I can give you an exact number. I bet you he's 27.
27.
And I didn't look at it. I promise you.
So that's kind of where we've seen a lot of these rankings kind of fall around. Jonathan, where do you think? Are you thinking he's over 27 or under? I'll give you the option to push as well if you want.
I'm gonna take the push.
It's gonna hurt him. It's gonna hurt him.
Oh gosh. What's funny is that we saw the early rankings putting him last, and then I think that was like culture shock for everybody. And I think I saw one recently where he was pretty high, like he was like 25th or something like that.
Jesus.
So yeah, I know. I think I'm gonna go under 27. Slightly.
What is under? Like under means like 25 or something?
26.
Yeah. Like
26. Okay. I got you.
Yep. Yeah.
Understood.
So we'll say round 1 goes to B. Will. He came in at 28. So one spot behind 27.
See how much optimism I got?
Jacoby Brissett.
You see the optimism I got?
I think I saw one that had him at 25 or so. I would have been surprised if it were, to be honest, but I was giving the national media the benefit of the doubt a little bit.
But I mean, I've argued with people, not just you, Jonathan, on the question of what has he done? He ain't done as much to be. Yeah. He hasn't done more than, he didn't do more than 24 quarterbacks last year.
I'll say just off last week's show, and man, the comments were fire. I think we had like 70 comments on that last video, and we were really diving into Anthony Richardson more than anything, and just how he was overhyped. PFF, I think, did a better job of that, and it's no longer this top 5, top 10. They actually have AR ranked at 24th, so I didn't mind that. I think this is kind of where he should fall. That's kind of where I saw it. So I did think they did a better job of that. And Levis, I mean, it's kind of hard to fight against the 27th ranking, but I think he will finish higher at the end of the season. I think
most definitely.
People.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So that leads us to running backs. And I'll say this, all these other positions, there can be multiple from one team. It's it's 32 rankings, but it can be multiple from teams. So we're going to go into running backs next. And where do we think the Titans running backs, and you can give both examples if you wanted to, or you can just put one, and we're going to you, Jonathan. Where do you have Spears or Pollard ranked on this?
What's the qualifying running backs are probably a bit different, right? Because there's committees. So is it just not out of 32, or are they ranking them based on
It's just 32.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
top 32.
So I guess the next question is, who do they have as starting? Is it Tony Pollard? I'll just roll with that. Okay, cool. So where do I think Tony Pollard lands out of 32 starting running backs in the NFL? That's really tough. I think that if Tony Pollard was still a Dallas Cowboy, he would probably get more leeway. But I think it's relatively low. I would argue I'll set the number at 24.
Ooh.
24.
Where's the optimism, Jonathan?
He just loves Traylon Burks. He doesn't care about Tony Pollard.
Screw everybody else.
If you asked me where Traylon Burks would fall on a rankings list, I'd have him very low. Okay.
Tony Pollard played more wide receiver than Burks did in college.
Yes,
over at Memphis.
more
wide receiver snaps for sure.
Yeah.
So you had him at 28, 24?
24.
I'm taking under on that for sure. I've got him anywhere from 14 to 18.
And with the running back rankings, B-Will goes up to nil. Tony Pollard fell at 14. So he's getting that Dallas Cowboys boost
Top
right now.
15. He is getting the Dallas Cowboys.
He's a good running back, man.
He is a good running back. Yeah, on the Titans.
I don't know if they know that, though.
That's the Cowboys hangover.
Spears missed the list entirely. And
he ain't going to be on there.
No, he's not going to be on there. And we don't have to dive into it. I think Spears is the day one starter. I think Pollard
Spears would be – I'm going to go as far as to say that Spears will be 14 next year.
Yeah.
If not top 10.
I think Spears finishes with more touches. Yep. I think Pollard may see more first down snaps, but I think Spears sees more touches this season.
I think it'd be the opposite, man. Honestly, I think Pollard would be the third down back.
I think that's the consensus. I think that's Spears will be out the third down. He's an amazing pass pro back. And he's better as a receiver out of the backfield.
Tajay has crazy explosive. He's explosive. And if you guys look at last year when he got to get the ball in his hands, there were times where I was like, hey, go ahead and leave Tajay out there. Like, let the king sit for a little longer because that boy is bursting through. Like this hole, it's so funny. And maybe it was the dynamic of like opening holes for Derrick Henry, who kind of is like a slow, steady, like boom, like explosion. Like once you get to the secondary, Tajay is exploding the second he gets the ball in his hand out of the backfield. And he's ripping through for 5 or 6 yards with like before you would. It's so funny. Like the holes are not even fully developed. He's just bursting through them. So I'm with you guys. I'm really high on Tajay, and I think there's a good chance that he can end up with more touches overall than Pollard. But we'll see. Hopefully that's a good problem we have, and both guys are really productive, and then there's more of a 50-50, 40, 50, 60 target share. But, yeah, I agree with you. I'm really high on him.
Yeah, I think it goes overlooked a lot. With the Cincinnati system that they ran, of course they did throw the ball a lot. But this team – They run it regardless if they're having success or not. Joe Mixon, his entire career, basically, they're going to give him close to 300 touches regardless of how he plays. It's just what they do. So I think Titans fans are expecting us to come out and throw 50 passes a game. That's not going to be the case. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball effectively. We're going to be very effective in the run game, just as much as we've been in the years past. We're just not going to do it as much. It's going to predicate, and it's going to set up that play action, of course. But let's go ahead and move on to tackle. Rookies are on this list, so obviously Latham would be the top of this. We don't even know who the right tackle is at the moment. You could throw in NPF if you want. But B-Will, where are we ranking J.C. Latham on this list?
27.
27.
Well,
he's a rookie, of
27.
course. And this is taking into account for left and right tackles. This is put all into one boat. So,
if it's left and right tackles, hell, he's probably 27. 27 is about right.
27.
If not higher, dude.
I might take the push on this. I agree. I think it's in that range. You could probably even argue 28. If you're including both left and right tackle, there are some very good tackles in this league. And obviously JC has not proven anything yet. So, but if I was personally ranking him, Yeah, it'd probably be 27, 28. I'll go ahead and you know what? For the sake of playing the other side, I'll take the over and I'll go 28.
And Jonathan has his
30.
first point on the board.
Mhm.
JC, the Titans do not have a tackle on the top 32. We are unranked.
Yeah.
We are unranked on it, and
That's
deservedly probably so.
That's
It
embarrassing.
could improve. It could improve.
Yep.
It could improve. It could be. We could be on this list come next season.
Man, that'd be cool to be a top 32 player in the 32 team league. That'd be sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we'll still move on to wide receiver. This is one Titans very optimistic about, of course, with everything that we've brought in. Again, top 32. Each team's rolling out two at least, some a third, like us. So we're going back to you, Jonathan, to set the line. Where do you see the Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley? And you can do whatever you want with that.
Okay, so I'm bunching them together. I'm assuming it's just individuals, right?
I'll give you that Hopkins is the top of this.
Okay, I would have assumed that. Okay, cool. Where do they have Hopkins? Well, obviously still a 1,000-yard receiver, still a guy who's really productive in an offense that was not throwing the ball very well. So I will give D-Hop. I think he gets a little bit of a legacy bump, just a small one, because of the player he is. And I think there's like some really young guys on that list that have maybe had some early flashes. So I'll give D-Hop 20. I'll give D-Hop 24.
24 out of 32.
You sound like the pessimist, man. I feel like it's me. That's something I would say.
You know me, just being a realist. You know how my opinions
Keeping
flow.
it real.
You know.
I got him a lot lower than that. I'm taking it under. I got him at 15. I mean, he's a very good receiver in this league. There's receivers that are better than him at this time. And, a 1,000-yard receiver doesn't go unnoticed. I bet you he's 15 and Mike Evans is probably like 12 or 11.
Okay, hold on. Okay, he's right. Let me go lower. I'm not going to go lower than him.
Whoa.
I'm not going to go lower than you. But I am going to go a little lower than 24. You're right. On second thought, like mapping out all the receivers in my head, I'll go 19. 19 for D-Hop. Yep.
Still going over?
Yeah, 19.
You're going 19. B. Will, you're going over or under?
15. Under.
15.
He's going under.
Under. Awesome. Well, it wasn't enough. 17 was close. He came. I'm sorry. 17 was the line. Did you say 17?
Oh, wow. I said 19.
I said 15. He said 19.
Okay. So, I mean, under. So, B. Will takes the point.
Yep.
B. Will takes the point. But it's very close. You guys are right in the middle. So, that's where they saw him. And where did they have Mike Evans? And I'll tell you real quick because that was the name we brought up. They actually had him over Mike Evans.
Right?
Mike
They
Evans
had him over
20.
Mike Evans?
What?
What? Okay,
Mike Evans is a better receiver than
Devontae Smith at 16.
Throw the whole list out.
Nico Collins comes in at 15.
Nico Collins is a very good receiver.
He is, and he got paid. He got that money. He got that bag.
Yeah.
And
that's
at this
who I
point
think
in his
is going.
career, he's probably.
That's what I'm trying to say. When we play Houston, Snead is following Nico Collins. He's not following anybody else.
Yeah, Diggs.
People don't want to say that. He's not following Diggs. I guarantee that. He's shadowing Nico Collins.
DK Metcalf comes in at 24. That one stands out to me.
Interesting.
Good. That's where he should be. I don't think he should be no higher than that.
T. Higgins comes in at 32. So next season, if DeAndre retires, we can just take one step back. So
tight ends, I guarantee we're not even there.
Nope.
That's the next line. That's the next line. And
unranked.
We both say unranked.
B-Will is unranked. So we got to push. We'll just push that point. Chig comes in at 22, actually. Chig Okonkwo, 22.
Tight ends suck, though.
There are no good tight ends. There's 3 good tight ends, and that's it.
Hold on. We're gonna blow this whole the list of this whole credibility away. Who is
PFF already didn't have that.
Who is under Chig?
Oh, I don't have that one pulled up. Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. So they have him at 22.
I love Chig, by the way. Big
Luke
fan
Musgrave falls right underneath. Jonnu
Okay.
Smith right past him.
of Chig. Okay.
And then Taysom Hill would be the following one.
Taysom
right.
Hill's more productive than Chig Okonkwo.
I could argue Tyler Higbee is a little bit lower on this list. I could see him maybe above Chig. But I mean, I don't hate the list. They still have Darren Waller on this list, and I mean, he retired, did he not?
Mentally. Well,
Yeah,
I shouldn't say that.
I don't know
say that.
I don't know if he did officially.
I feel like I remember something about that.
He's checked out. He checked out as soon as he left Vegas. And he checked out while he was in Vegas.
Well, he got a divorce, so that'll check anybody out. So I want to give him
especially to who he got divorced from, for sure. That'd check me out too.
Yeah, then she had a glow up.
That's an L.
Really unfair timing.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the popcorn eating incident.
Mm-hmm. Then he went to New York.
Yeah.
Rough.
I mean, that's where players go to die. That's where wide receivers should go to die, and no longer Tennessee. Next up, that brings us in interior defensive line. Obviously, Jeffrey Simmons is going to be on this board. And I'll say he's the highest that we have ranked on.
I'm going to say something wild on Jeff.
I mean, you're up.
I think that Big Jeff is second.
Big Jeff second.
Which feels wild, but I think he's behind Chris Jones. I think he's second.
I gotta keep remembering that Aaron Donald retired.
Right.
And that's a great conversation to have when you're talking about a player. You know, that's a compliment to Jeff. But I would say I'm going to take the over on that. I think Jeff will be 4 behind Chris Jones, Madubuike in Baltimore. There's another guy. I think there's a guy in Washington I'm thinking of that's in the place. Somebody in the NFC North.
His name is Jonathan something, isn't it?
Jonathan Allen, but he's not interior, is he? He's sort of like a 4 or 5. He's like he's a 5 tech / 3 tech.
He's on this list. Are y'all ready to flip some tables? Jeffrey Simmons comes in at 8 on this list.
Man, there's some good interior D linemen in this league, though, man. That's not a slouch on Jeffrey Simmons.
Well, the two you brought up in Jonathan Allen and Madubuike, they actually fall below at 11th, and Jonathan Allen comes in at 14th.
I mean, Madubuike, I have fucking 18 sacks last year, something crazy.
So Chris Jones is number 1.
Sure.
Dexter Lawrence comes in at number 2. Don't mind that. Quinton Williams at number 3. That's where this conversation ends for me. I think Jeffrey Simmons is much better. And then Derek Brown, Cameron Hayward. Okay.
Derek Brown?
Yeah. DeForest
Cameron
Buckner,
Hayward.
Javon Hargraves are the 7 names ahead of him.
See, he's better than those guys. He's 4th.
Barely edging out Jalen Carter at 9.
That's
and Jalen Carter's done jack shit. I'll give PFF the first. Who did you say? Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, and Quinton Williams is a beast, man.
Quinton Williams, but he's not bigger than.
That's a coin flip.
When
I know that's a coin flip.
Hired, the first player he called was Jeffrey Simmons, and then Will Levis. That tells you how much in high regard they keep an interior defensive lineman on this team. He is the cornerstone of this team right now.
Better.
That's why 8 is wild. Like if you would have said he's 4th, if you would have said he's 5th, if you would have said he's 6, I'd have been like, okay, I guess. Let's list them off. But 8 is wild.
Unacceptable.
Wild.
Yeah.
And I respect PFF. That's ridiculous.
I do too. I don't expect this stuff though. I love them for the advanced analytics and how you can break that stuff down, but it's got to be to make your own decisions because how they do this it just doesn't. It's boggling to me.
Let's keep this in mind when we're looking at PFF draft boards next year because they're evaluating what if. This is the is, and they can't even get the is right.
Yeah.
I'm not trusting them.
Into this. Are they just okay? Serious
Cooper
question.
DeJean was 7 on their big board at one point.
This could matter. Context matters, right? So, like, are they basing these off of their 2023 PFF grades? Like, because that could
no, they are not. I'll tell you that.
So what is this list based off of? Just is it predictive?
Vibes.
Yes.
Vibes.
Yep.
Hey guys, check
vibes and the vibes are immaculate over there at PFF.
Vibes ranking on this. Okonkwo, he's 12th in the league.
And
Jeffrey
I don't know
who's that.
Howie Roseman has these publications and companies blowing smoke up his ass. Why is Jalen Carter close to Jeffrey Simmons on this list?
Right after Jeffrey Simmons. They're probably like
Mm-hmm.
Carter or Simmons. We'll go 8-9, sure. Like,
Yeah.
bro, that's asinine. Jeffrey Simmons at 8th best in the league is asinine. It just is. It's just
and no, hell no. You said Jeffrey Simmons is the highest person on this list? We ain't even got the corners yet.
Corner actually has not been published yet. I'll say that.
Oh, see, Jeff
has not been published.
See, Jake, look.
He was B-Will got so pissed he called you Jeff.
Yeah. Hey, man.
We only have one more. We have edge left. So
okay,
that offensive line.
Now that almost pissed me off, and I don't
you about set me off. I almost took my break. I almost took my weave
Get
out.
ready for this punter publication to come out because Stone Outside is better be one.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. Number one realtor too.
Oh yeah.
Well, number two, my brother's a realtor. Number two.
One's in the East, one's in the West, Nashville.
Yeah.
So that leads us to our last one, which is edge. Edge is what we're following up with. Obviously, Harold Landry's would be the highest on this list. And I believe, B-Will, you're setting the line for the last one.
I will have Landry at number 22. That's why I'll have Landry.
That is a good number.
This is great for my pessimism with the Titans.
I'm going to go under.
This is right up my alley. You're going under?
I'm going to go under, and I'm going to say 18.
18.
Go on a ledge there, Jonathan.
I will. You both are very optimistic in the lines of where PFF falls because the Titans, again, do not have any players ranked in the top 32.
And the rankings for edge?
For edge, we have 0. Wrapping up the list.
Hold on. Do you have the final? Do you have like 20 through 32 on hand by chance? Who can you name those? Just curious. 20 through 32.
So Will Anderson, Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, Brandon Graham, Gregory Rousseau, Matthew Judon, Jadeveon Clowney.
Okay, sure.
Carl Grandison, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Hold on. Go back to after Clowney. What number are we at?
We're at 27 with Clowney.
Okay, and then 28?
28 is Carl Grandison out of New Orleans. And then Thibodeau, Jonathan Grenard, Josh Sweat.
Grenard at 30?
Grenard is, 30.
Wow.
And then Sweat and then Marcus Davenport wraps up the list at 32.
We're over the moon if we get any of those guys in.
Yeah, we kind of – the Clowney ranking, he's higher than he should be, in my opinion. I would have Landry over him, but it's hard to it's hard to argue some of these names on this list. I think
no, for sure.
I think you could. I think he could plug in at 30 or through 32.
Yeah. We're bad boys.
With the exception of Jonathan Grenard. Jonathan Grenard at 30 is kind of wild.
Yeah,
we're bad though. That's what people got to temper expectations. Don't get excited off this shit you see in practice, on air, or any of that. We are bad. And we might win 7 games.
It's very possible. And that would still be the over because I think that's set at 6.5 right now. So that would be a good season in Vegas's odds.
Slamming the over.
The only bet that I could count on with the Titans in history is Derrick Henry first touchdown. And I made a lot of money off that one.
Oh, yeah.
Especially 2020. Oh, my God. 2019, 2020, Derrick Henry first touchdown. It cashed, I'd say, probably about 12 out of the 16 weeks. It got to the – I was
that's the only bet I was winning consistently,
12 out of the 16 weeks are the only time we scored a touchdown. Or I guess I was just talking about 2020.
2019, 2020 for sure. It got to the point where I was throwing more than $10 on it. I was confident.
All right. Well, that wraps up the list. Final score. We don't have to get into it, but B-Will wins. He did very well. And that leads us into our draft. And then we're going to get out of here, guys. If you guys are checking us out on for the first time, join us over on YouTube. Type in Glory Day Sports. Hop into the live chat. Drop your comments. Join guys like Stoney Keeley with Soboros Network, MB in the chat. We love to see you there. We're growing this channel. If everybody would just hit that subscribe button, you could help us so much. Just looking at our numbers, 80% of you guys are not subscribed. So if all of you were,
come on,
we can hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers, we could be at 3,000 subscribers based on our numbers. So
It's free
hop over
99.
there.
It's
Do us a
fun.
favor, guys. Oh, I messed up the screen. But we're hopping to our draft. So Jonathan has the 101. I'm going to 102. B will at 103 on the turn. We are drafting dream jobs, dream careers. You can hop into the money aspect. You can hop into just having a fun day at work. If you enjoy your work, and you'll never work a day in your life. But we're starting with you, Jonathan.
Mark Twain said that.
Something like that.
He did.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I wrote a book, and the book starts with that quote.
See, I knew that.
Okay. So yeah, of course. So I'm going to take about 15 seconds before I go with my first pick, and I'm going to give everyone in the chat a chance to click that subscribe button. It's free, costs you nothing. You can turn notifications off, whatever. Just show support. Click that little button. It goes a long way. Okay, so I'm going to take 5 more seconds.
Don't be a Traylon Burks.
Cool. Okay.
Amen.
All right, we're there. Amen. Cool. So with the 101, I just want to point out that I've never had the 101. And if I have, maybe it was one time, but I've not had it so many times that I've disgruntled about how little I've had it. So I just, again, want to soak this in this moment.
It's like
I'm
Detroit with the
We're
lottery.
going to take
in the
another
NBA.
moment of silence to
another one. No. I'll dive into it. This one has legitimately been my dream job since I was little. Everybody knows, big Titans fan. Really enjoy like the personnel side of things, like the off the field stuff as well. I always have. I got a chance to do a little bit of like player personnel stuff, if you will, with the Mavs when I was working for Mavs Gaming. I was a part of the conversations with draft talk and prospecting, and even doing it at that level was just so much fun. And
Jonathan built the dynasty.
Not exactly.
We're saying it here. He drafted Luka Doncic.
There were several people there. But yeah, anyways.
Take the credit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll take the credit. You guys are welcome. If I'm being I already tweeted Mark. If they win this ring, I need to get my staff ring. I'm gonna need that expeditiously. Anyways, so my 101 is the general manager of the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah,
man, just a dream job. Since I was a little kid, I was like, man, that would be so cool to build the team that I love, and use my expertise and my just knowledge of the game and go and build such an amazing team. So that to me is the coolest job in the world. Very catered to me. I'm sure plenty of people that's not even on their radar. But man, what a dope job. So I'm gonna go with GM of the Titans.
So with the GM, you have lots of responsibilities, and I wish I would have put that on my list, but I've got to find an argument for my pick. So I went very similar. You got lots of weight on your shoulders. You got to make the right stuff, and by the end of it, you might come out like J-Rob and everybody's dislike of you. Sure. I'm going a little separate, slightly different direction. I'm going backup quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. I want no pressure at all. Blue Mountain State is literally a show written about the backup quarterback and how you can just do whatever. Nobody cares what you do. You can have fun. Mason Rudolph's making $3 million this season for doing jack shit all year. So I'm going backup quarterback of the Tennessee Titans to follow your GM of the Tennessee Titans. So I went back up, and then B. Will, you got the turn. You got back to back.
All right, so I think I'll go. And this is something that could be the only bad thing about this position would be the negative on the job criticism from other people. But you talk about responsibility. I mean, this guy doesn't have any. I mean, he's on TV a little bit, but I mean, he's tossing, he's flipping the ball to the pitcher whenever they're in the bullpen, and he's saying, "Hey, let's have a good day. Be confident." That's what I want to be. I want to be a bullpen coach, MLB bullpen coach. I just want to be the guy sitting there shooting the shit with a pitcher with a chaw in, or spitting some seeds, saying, "You got this, man. Be confident." So that's what I'll be there, and then at the turn, let me see. Baseball's so laid back, man. So there's got to be something with baseball that I'd want to be. But I would say probably a scout for the Titans. That wouldn't be bad. I'd take that too.
Yeah.
Scout's a good one.
Does philanthropist count? Like, can I just be somebody loaded that just helps stuff?
Trust fund.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I be a trust fund baby?
Can it just be a Nepo baby?
They said that's what Callahan was.
Hey. Hey, everybody's got a job to do.
Man, this
they're not going to let us talk about the Titans. We're not going to have anything we talk.
The QB School, I love his YouTube channel, but I don't get his hate for the Titans. He absolutely hates Brian Callahan for getting hired. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
He still talks about it to this day. Has no.
He was back up at Denver, right?
God, I don't know. Know.
Yeah,
but I could see it.
I don't know. I blocked him. I don't.
Peyton Manning might be a good thing if it's why Callahan was there. Well, I guess I'm back up on the board. And I think by no discount to our podcast, we went 4 sports-related things right off the bat.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and I'm going to go – I have some ones I think might come back to me. But we talked about last week and how that draft went, and we did best barbecue. We're talking food. I love food. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going with a food critic.
Oh,
you get to go just eat. Why not?
That ain't bad.
Food critic with
that
second
was my pick.
Was it really? Yeah.
Shoot.
So,
okay, we scramble. Well, man, sometimes in drafts these things happen. You have to trust your board above all. So I'm going to go to the next one, and this one's pretty straightforward. I feel like a lot of people are able to do this type of job these days. It can be fluid, so it could be like a part-time thing, it could be your full-time thing. Just kind of depends on what you want to do with it and why I think is a really cool job. And I'm going to go with a content creator / streamer.
Yep.
Content creation, like what we're doing right now. A lot of people get to just chase their passions, talk about what they love, whatever, and get paid to do it. Get paid
to play video games. Who would hate that? It was on my list. It was definitely. Oh, and you got back-to-back picks.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I completely am not used to this. So my board kind of fell apart. Let's go with. Hold on 1 second. I had it pulled up right in front of me, and I wanted to reference it. Where did it go? Let's go with. I like the idea of being like a Netflix movie board member or something. They have like these boards. They come together and go, okay, let's pitch some movie ideas. So maybe like either that or like a writer for a movie or a show or something would be really cool. So maybe I'll just go with writer.
Okay. I did see one when I just kind of like looked up this draft. I was like, what's some good jobs? And I didn't put it on my list, but there was actually Netflix tagger. So you basically just watch the shows and then you put the tags on it so it recommends to people. I was like,
the reason why that's not a dream job is because it pays dog shit. So
I didn't even put it on my list, but I was like,
it is a cool job
just to be a couch potato, but
it is a cool job.
So yes, writer.
Yes, let's go with movie writer.
Like it. And I'm back up on the board. I got backup QB for the Titans and food critic checked and marked. I'm going to go with one that I would just really enjoy doing. It's very chill. It's very laid back. Not many people get to really experience it in their lives. And I want to be a scuba instructor. So going to... I've gone to places like Cozumel, and I mean, there's these tropical climates that you can go and scuba dive at, and a lot of them you don't even have to be certified for. I believe you can go up to 100 feet down below without having a certification. You just have to do a quick little hour class or whatever. It's an amazing experience. You can get to see whatever you want down there. It's a completely different world, and to be able to experience that world on a daily basis and to be able to take others with you to do that, and for them to experience for the first time, vibes are immaculate. Vibes are immaculate. We'll say it for the 8th time in this show. So I'm going scuba instructor with my 3rd pick, and then B-Will, you got your back-to-back to wrap up your draft.
I've got what I have in my board, but then I sort of want to go take a tangent with it too. So I'm gonna go and say sports owner. That would be a good job to have.
Yep.
You know,
No
you've
doubt.
got all the money in the world. You own a sports team. You do whatever you want. So
You
that would
own
be
the Titans.
yeah. I could own the Titans. That'd be cool. And
He
then
will
the
strong.
last, yeah. And then the last one, I would say, what a farmer,
Hello?
like a large scale farmer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trade
Trade him.
Traylon Burks. Yeah,
There's-
trade his ass.
They don't want. Give it to him. We'll take
A
a
lot-
washing machine
we'll
like
take
Jackie Moon. Yep. Thanks. Oof, man, it's a tough gig being the owner of this team.
Oh, man.
Wait, hold on. Who else we could?
No, you got
Amani
you got to
Hooker?
point.
We don't need
Amani.
anything.
Amani. Yep. No. Well, yeah, we'll take microfiber cloths for him. Sure. Yep. Thanks. We'll give him money also. How much do they need?
We need cement for the stadium. Give us a couple bags of cement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last one, I would say I'd be a large scale farmer, one that doesn't have to get his hands dirty. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Traylon Burks in it out there. Like it.
Yep. A bass man. I don't know, but a large scale farmer would be cool though. If I had a whole probably like 100 people that worked for me and I had supervisors that were really good and they took care of everything and it was just my land, that wouldn't be a bad gig.
That'd be sweet.
But I was going to put, and I didn't want you to have to go through the hurdles of putting this, in the thumbnail and shit. But what I really wanted to be, because I know it would be tough, is the owner of racehorses. Or I just traveled to the Kentucky Derby and stuff and just, had my horses like
Show up in
yeah,
your finest wares.
yeah,
cool.
that's the pristine Preaker. Yeah, she's a fawn, 2 years old.
What's a pre?
Only eats Wagyu beef.
I don't know. It was I don't know. That
My
was some
horse
name.
only eats Wagyu beef. My horse actually only eats horse meat. She needs to understand that we don't play this
Jeez.
shit, and she's going to be competitive.
She's 100% pure horse.
Yeah. But I think that'd be a cool gig though, to be able to just, do the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness and all that. It wouldn't be too bad.
No, I like that.
That's a good one.
All right. So I got to wrap up mine. And I got a decent amount of picks I still liked out there. But we're staying with the outdoors. I love it. I love it down here. So I'm going wilderness guide. Being
That was
able
on my
to
list too.
take people out on hunts, be able to take them and teach them where the fishing spots hold, teach them where all the good spots. And the same thing with the scuba. You get to see their interactions for the first time. Usually most of them live out there on the land. I would think that'd be a really cool job. Might not pay the best, but you got everything you need. So
I think they give you housing and everything too. Like you don't have
Most
rent.
time.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're just chilling out
That ain't
there.
bad.
I've heard some good things. We have some park rangers. A buddy of mine is friends with a park ranger, and
Park
I've
Ranger
heard
was
from-
on my thing as well.
yeah, they have some pretty sweet gigs. Like they have good amenities. Like they get a truck, they get a place to live, they get like a lot of stuff covered. Sometimes food is even covered, like a lot of stuff. The pay is not crazy. I think those guys make like 30, 40, 50K a year or something, but you have no bills. So
I
it's
have a
kinda
buddy that she just started doing it a couple years ago, really. She goes down to Yellowstone for 2-3 months on an end, and she just volunteers as a park ranger. And she
That's sick.
loves doing it. She's done it. This is the second year in a row she's done it, and she absolutely loves it. And then that wraps up my draft. Jonathan, you got one more pick to wrap up yours.
Perfect. This one falls in for me, very on brand. It's something I've even considered pursuing multiple times. I think it would just be fun, but I just have too many interests, so it's never going to come to life. And that would be comedian. A comedian.
I have it. Stand-up comedian is on my
That
board.
wouldn't be bad.
I think that would be a really cool gig. Those guys make good money whenever they're doing, whenever they're touring, whenever they have their guest spots, whenever you find a place that gets you in there on a regular basis. Once the crowd finds you funny, then that can blow up. And sometimes people just are naturally funny. I've been told that I'm that person. So yeah, I've had situations. Funny story. When I was little, when I was like 10, 11, 12, I watched Comedy Central Presents all the time, like really early in the morning. And I watched just a ton of comedians, and I've always been a huge fan of comedy. So I started my own joke book when I was 12. And I had a couple jokes written down. And one of my first jokes that I had written down was making fun of like the Sarah McLachlan commercials, like the Arms of the Angel animals and stuff. And so I had a joke around that. And then like a year later, somebody really big, like Gabriel Iglesias or somebody, did that joke almost verbatim. And I went, I'm screwed.
Chalk it up.
Yep.
I'm screwed. What am I going to do? Write an entire book of jokes at 13 years old and then go do comedy at, I can't tell these jokes. Like I can't go to a comedy club at 13. At least I thought that way, right? So I was like, oh, the earliest I can do these jokes is like 18. What am I going to wait 5 years and have all my jokes be gone? That's kind of how I thought. So I just like wrote it off. But who knows? Maybe if the opportunity for open mic came up, I'd hop on there and just kind of riff and have fun. But yeah, I think
Shame on Gabriel Iglesias.
I know he's a real jerk for stealing a 12-year-old boy from Middle Tennessee's joke.
Yeah, that's pretty
cool.
jacked up, man.
Yep. Well, that wraps it up, guys. Jonathan finishes with Tennessee Titans GM, a streamer, movie writer, and stand-up comedian. I finished with backup quarterback for the Titans, food critic, scuba instructor, wilderness guide, and B-Will's got MLB bullpen coach, scout for the Titans, owner of the Titans, and a large-scale
scout for the Titans and then owner.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I don't want the responsibility now.
Yeah.
No.
Bro, values.
Did you guys have any on your list that you didn't get to? Any shout-outs to any honorable mentions?
I want to be a painter, like an artist, to where I can just focus on art. That'd be pretty cool.
Shout out to my new art.
I like that.
Keely.
Yeah, like that.
That's Will Levis, man.
Voice actor was one. It was pretty
voice
cool.
actor on my list. I had personal pilot, zookeeper,
philanthropist,
gym owner. I think that's cool. I mean, I've worked in gyms for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy work, very light on the hours.
Like it.
But yeah, that wraps it up, guys. We enjoy everybody joining us. We got nearly 300 of y'all in chat. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We want to see you guys here every Thursday. Hop in the chat. Join guys like MB and So Bros with Stoney. But we will check you guys next Thursday. Same time, same place. Peace.